Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to the Wealthy Trustee webinar. I'm super excited that you guys are here. So, I have a wonderful webinar presentation for you guys today. So, if you guys want to know how to set up a trust, what a trust is, the contributors of a trust, how to protect your assets, how to build wealth with a trust, you have come to the right place. Okay. A lot of people, they're not familiar with what a trust is. They've only probably heard the term trust fund. And so they are seeking information. They want to acquire that knowledge to see if a trust is the best fit for them and their family. So what I want to do is I want to teach you the right way to build wealth with a trust. Okay. It's one of the most powerful entities in the entire world. And you have to know a little bit about it. You have to know how powerful it is for you to be able to utilize it the right way. So we're going to dive right into the presentation. I have a short presentation for you after the presentation. Then we can dive into Q&A and I'll be able to answer any and all questions that you guys might have based off of the information that I'm going to go over tonight. Now, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Christina Yvette. I am the founder of Seven Ways to Wealth. So we are a financial literacy company and we teach on asset protection, primarily trusteeship. Okay. And so trusteeship stems from you actually being the fiduciary of a trust and operating the trust as a trustee. I have been a trustee for 11 years, so I am teaching from a standpoint of experience, right? So I've navigated through this space and I am just educating you guys from what I have experienced in the last 11 years, okay? Now, I wasn't always a trustee, right? So I've only been a trustee for 11 years. Prior to me becoming a trustee, I was actually a registered nurse. So the way that I got into trusteeship was by way of my career. So I was a registered nurse for 8 years, but my second year in nursing, I was already burned out because, as you guys know, when it comes to nursing, the nurses work 12-hour shifts. I used to have one of those medical jackets, and on the back of it, it said 12-hour hustle because I know that I was clocking in at 7 o'clock in the morning and clocking out at 7 o'clock at night. And after a year of doing that, I was already burnt out because I was working 5 and 6 days a week, 12-hour shifts. And at that time, I had a 1 year old baby that I wasn't spending any time with. So I was allowing my mom to raise my baby. And it was very frustrating for me because there was nothing that I could do, right? I was stuck in this concrete box, which is the hospital, taking care of my beautiful patients and spending time with my coworkers rather than being at home with my 1 year old son that needed me. So, out of that frustration, I was able to birth a company, right? And so the way that that happened was one day I was driving to work and there is this guy, his name is Than Marrow. So he is a real estate coach and he was having a seminar. So on the radio, I'm driving to work, and he says in one of these ads on the radio, "Do you want to learn how to flip houses?" And so my neck broke so quick, and I was like, "Yeah, I want to learn how to flip houses." And so he's like, "Come to my seminar this weekend." So I signed up for his seminar. It was $200, and it was the best $200 I ever spent in my entire life because in those 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I learned so much about real estate that I never knew. And I knew that real estate was my way to financial freedom. So after that seminar, I went down the rabbit hole of real estate and started doing all of my research. I ended up creating my investment company. And from there, I invested in my first property. So this property, right? I bought it in Miami. That's where I'm from. And I bought it for $89,000. And I end up selling this property for $235,000. So when I sold that property, I knew that I did not have to trade my time for money anymore. That was really like the key to me unlocking my financial freedom because there was nothing that really like required so much of my time and effort when it came to this house, right? I just spent a couple hours looking for the property, a couple hours like hiring the right subcontractors, right? But outside of that, for me to make six figures on one house was insane. And at that time, I'm young, I'm 25 years old. This is the first time that I'm doing this. The beautiful thing about that process is that I had a mentor throughout the whole entire process, and he was showing me the ropes. And he, at that time, he was in real estate for decades, right? So, he told me in the midst of this whole thing, right? He's like, you need to take that property out of the LLC and put it into a trust. And I never knew what a trust was, right? 25 years old, never really heard of it. And I'm like, well, why? Right? I didn't understand, right? And you don't know what you don't know, right? And so basically, the reason being was because there's subcontractors coming in and out, right? So you got electrician, you have plumbers, you have general contractors coming in and out. If one of them get injured, if one of them decides to fall or anything like that, they can sue me and they can sue the LLC and they can take the property away. It's just that easy. So when I realized that it was that easy for someone to take something away from me that I just got, I was like, no, I'm not going to take that chance. And so he showed me how to set up my trust. I set it up. I placed that property into the trust, been operating within Trustee ever since. Okay. So with that being said, let's dive into the presentation. Now, what I want to do is I want to tell you guys what an actual trust is, right? Because a lot of people they hear the term, trust fund, but they're not sure what it is, right? And so a trust is an entity. It is a living, breathing entity just like you. You are a living, breathing entity. So out here in society, you operate with your name and social. Out here in society, a trust operates with his name and his EIN number. Okay. So it's that 9-digit number that's equivalent to your social. So just think about it, right? Whatever you can do, a trust can do. So if you can buy a house, a trust can buy a house. If you can buy a car, or if you can build credit, a trust can buy a car, a trust can build credit, right? So there's no limitations to what a trust can do, which is extremely powerful. So just think about you having the capacity to be able to duplicate yourself. And now instead of you using your name and social out here in society, you can now use the trust name and the trust social, right? Which is the EIN. Now, what is an actual trust, right? So we said that it's an entity, but what you need to know is that it is a contractual entity. That means that it comes into existence by way of a contract, okay? So you have to have that contract, right? Where it's on paper, black and white, it's in writing, you physically sign it, you can physically touch it, things of that nature, okay? And in this contract, right, there's two sections that I want you to be aware of. There's several different sections to the contract, and we pretty much call the entire contract an indenture, okay? Now, the first section that I want you to know about is the declaration where you're declaring what it is that you're actually setting it up, right? So remember, there's thousands of different types of contracts. So what is this contract, right? So we're saying that it's not a joint venture, it's not a general partnership, it is not a corporation or an LLC, but it is a trust, okay? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that when it comes to the indenture, you have your bylaws, right? And so your bylaws is where you're going to put all the terms and conditions of how you want the trust to operate, right? Because remember, the trust cannot operate itself, even though it is seen as a living, breathing entity. So it needs someone else to operate on its behalf, right? And so that someone else is the trustee that's going to be able to carry out all of the tasks for the trust. So let's talk about these different parties, right? So we have a contract, there's several different parties. So these several different parties that we have here, the first one is the grantor, okay? So the grantor is the actual creator of the trust, right? That is the individual that sometimes you might see the word settlor or trustor that actually creates the trust and donates the first asset into the trust. The second party is the trustee. That's the controller of the trust. That is the individual who is going to be controlling the assets, managing the assets, maintaining the assets, and operating the trust on a day-to-day basis, as well as managing the funds that are in the trust, okay? So that is the individual that we call the fiduciary. And then the last party is the beneficiary. So the beneficiary is the inheritor of the trust, meaning they are the ones that are going to receive the inheritance that has been placed into the trust, okay? Now they're designed to receive distributions and gifts. So they'll receive money from the trust, all kind of benefits from the trust, things of that nature, okay? So it's very important for them to know what's inside of the trust, right? How is the trust being operated for their benefit, okay? Because the grantor creates the trust for the benefit of the beneficiary, not for their benefit, okay? So now that we know the different parties involved, let's go ahead and talk about the different types of trust, okay? When it comes to the trust, right, there are hundreds of different types of trust. So you have to choose the best trust for you and your family, okay? Now, let me give you a list of different categories that every single trust falls under these different categories, and you want to be mindful of how you set up this trust, okay? So the first category that I want to tell you guys about is express versus implied. So what we mean by this is an express trust is a written trust, right? That is a trust that is in that contract style that we mentioned, and it is in black and white. It's right, it's in writing. You can physically, tangibly touch it, okay? Versus an implied trust. So an implied trust is where you have that verbal agreement that has happened between the parties, but they never expressed it on a contract. So it was never placed into writing, okay? So the second category that I want to give you guys is simple versus complex. A simple trust is shorter in nature, and the trustee is required to distribute all the money that's inside of the trust. So no money is really held inside of the trust, okay? Versus the other type of trust, which is the complex trust. So with the complex trust, it's longer in nature, right? So that means that there's more rules and regulations, or what we call bylaws and provisions. Now, with that type of trust, you can actually hold money inside of the trust. So you don't have to distribute that money to the beneficiaries, okay? Which is a good thing sometimes, okay? The next category is statutory versus non-statutory. So, with a statutory trust, every single state has its own statutes and codes, and you can decide if you want to embed those statutes and codes inside of the trust or you want to leave them out, okay? So, every single trust is going to have a residency where it's set up in that one particular state. With a statutory trust, because those statutes and codes are embedded inside of the contract, you're limited to where you can only use that trust in that one state. You cannot use it anywhere else in the country, okay? The other thing is that that trust is now going to be a part of the public records, which means that everyone is able to see what's inside of the contract, okay? Versus a non-statutory means that there's no state statutes and codes. So that means that you're not limited to that one state, and you can actually use a non-statutory trust in all 50 states as well as all of the US territories, which is phenomenal, right? And it's not required to be registered with the public records, okay? So that means that your trust can actually remain private and no one has to see what's inside of the trust, okay? So just be mindful of that. Now, the next category that I want to give you is discretionary versus non-discretionary. So a discretionary trust is where the trustee has full discretion to be able to make decisions for the trust that's not embedded inside of the contract. So for example, if the trustee says, hey, we want to go buy Bitcoin, you can actually go buy Bitcoin even though it's not inside of the contract and it's not spelled out in one of the bylaws, okay? Versus a non-discretionary, it means that the trustee cannot make decisions on behalf of the trust if it's not in the bylaws, okay? So there's some limitation there. The last category that I want to give you is revocable versus irrevocable. So when we're talking about what we call revocability, we're only referring to one party in this contract. That one party is the grantor. So what we're saying with a revocable trust is that the grantor is able to make changes for the trust. They're able to revoke the trust or terminate the trust. They're able to remove trustees and beneficiaries. They're able to take back property that they have placed into the trust, okay? And with a revocable trust, the grantor is also going to be the trustee and most likely the beneficiary. So, because they're serving as all three parties, that type of trust is actually seen as their alter ego. And that type of trust is actually going to operate off of that individual social security number. So because that's the case, if there's any creditors or anyone that wants to come after the grantor, they will also be able to come after the trust, okay? So unfortunately, with a revocable trust, your assets are not protected at all, okay? The only thing that it can help you do is avoid probate, if that. Now, if a revocable trust was to end up in court and they're suing the trust, the judge can pierce through the trust. If the judge pierces through the trust, that means that you are now forced to produce the trust in court, which means that now everyone is going to know what's inside the trust, who the beneficiaries are, what assets you have, what the net worth of the trust is, right? Which can be very detrimental to your estate versus a irrevocable trust. So an irrevocable trust is where the grantor has what we call irrevocability. So that means that the grantor cannot make any changes or amendments to the trust. They cannot remove the trustee or the beneficiary. They cannot remove assets for the trust, okay? That they placed inside of the trust. So because they have irrevocability, that means they have no power and no control, right? They're not the ones that's actually operating the trust, okay? So this trust, right, because it is irrevocable, the grantor cannot be the trustee and cannot be the beneficiary. So this trust is actually going to seen as a separate entity, right? It's not seen as the grantor's alter ego. So because it's seen as as a separate entity, it's not going to operate under the grantor social. It's going to have its own social, which is the EIN number, okay? Now, creditors cannot come after an irrevocable trust because it's a separate entity, right? The trust is not the grantor and the grantor is not the trust, which is super powerful. And if that trust was to end up in court, the judge will not pierce through an irrevocable trust, which means that you get to maintain the privacy of the trust and the contents of the trust and the identities of the beneficiaries and the assets and net worth that you have inside of the trust. Now, when we are talking about these types of trust, right, how do we actually create a trust? The first thing that you need to do is you need to decide the type of trust that you actually want to create, right? So I gave you a list of categories, and what I want you to know is that if you want a bulletproof trust, a trust that's going to hold up in court, a trust that's actually going to last, you know, many generations into the future, right? A trust that's actually going to protect your assets 100%, then you want that type of trust to fall within the following categories. So you want it to be express in nature. You want it to be complex in nature. You want it to be discretionary in nature. You want it to be non-statutory. And lastly, you want it to be irrevocable. That is what we call a bulletproof trust, right? So with that being said, the next thing, after you've determined the type of trust that you want to create, then you're going to actually name the trust, okay? So what are you deciding to name the trust? Well, the two things that I want you to do is I want you to avoid using your first and last name. That's the one mistake that I see a lot of people make, okay? The second thing is you don't have to have the word trust in the actual name, okay? So you can name it whatever you want. Usually we'll use a combination of 2 and 3 random words, right? Or words that actually have some type of meaning towards you and your family. Now, after you've named the trust, right, you definitely need to appoint the different parties so that you can actually begin to start to create this contract. Now, when you're appointing the different parties, right, you have your grantor, your trustee, so you have to determine if you want control or if you don't want control. If you want control, then you're going to be the trustee and someone else is going to serve as the grantor. Then you're going to have your children be the beneficiary so that they can inherit the assets that are inside of the trust. And lastly, you need to choose someone who's going to take over after you. That is the successor trustee. That is the person who is going to take over after you in the event that something happens to you. Meaning, if you become incapacitated, if you decide that you want to resign from the trust organization, or if you transition and don't wake up tomorrow, someone needs to take over, okay? You need to have a succession plan in place so that that person is readily available and you're passing the baton to them so that the trust can continue to operate after you've transitioned, okay? So the next thing is you want to create the actual trust agreement. Remember, this is the contract that we've been talking about, right? You have to create the contract. And one of the most important things that you want to place inside of your contract are spendthrift provisions. Those are provisions that you're going to put in place, which are requirements or rules and regulations of how you want the money to be spent in the trust, okay? Remember, we have beneficiaries that did not accumulate this wealth, but I will tell you that they will blow the money that you have inside of that trust in a heartbeat if you allow them to, okay? And so those individuals, we call them spendthrifts, okay? So you need to have provisions in place to not allow that to happen. So you're going to actually be putting yourself in a position to where you're going to be controlling the money from the grave, which is the most powerful thing, right? So with that being said, some of the spendthrift provisions that you might recognize are age requirements, right? So where you say, hey, you cannot receive distributions until you're 21 years old, right? You might have an education restriction, right? To say, hey, you have to have a 4-year college degree or apprenticeship, right? Or you have to start a business, right? Or you have to have some type of financial literacy. So there's so many different types of provisions that you can place in there. Just make sure that you have the right ones, right? Now, after you're done creating your contract, then it's time to notarize it. Notarizing the contract makes it legal, okay? So there's 2 signatures that are required. You have your grantor and your trustee, and the notary is going to go ahead and witness those signatures. They're going to place their seal that legalizes the contract for you to then be able to utilize it. So now that the contract is utilized, what you want to do is you want to go open up a bank account. That bank account is what we call the trust fund, okay? So every time that you're out here doing your research and you see the word trust fund, they're actually referring to the bank account where you house the trust funds, okay? So what does this actually look like? Well, you have to pick a bank that you want to establish a banking relationship with. Now, with this bank, they are going to offer a trust account, right? Because I want you to be aware that not every single bank offers trust accounts, okay? So do your due diligence. Now, when it comes to the banks, right, the types of accounts that you're going to be opening up usually are either a checking account, a savings account, a money market account, or what we call a cash management account. And those could be with banks, credit unions, or even brokerage firms, okay? And so what you're going to do is you're going to bring the certificate of trust as well as your EIN confirmation letter that you get from the IRS. Those are the 2 things that are going to prove the identity of the trust, because what you don't want to do is bring your entire trust contract, right? Because you don't want your trust to end up in the wrong hands. You don't want anyone to see the contents of your trust. Your trust has to always remain private and in a safe location, okay? So you're only going to bring a certificate, which is 2 to 3 pages, where you're saying, here's a summary of what my trust entails, okay? Now that you have decided to open up that bank account, you have to fund it. So some banks have a minimum. Some banks, their minimum is 0. Some banks, their minimum is $100, 500, 1,000, just depends on the bank, okay? So you'll go ahead and fund it with the minimum, or you can go above the minimum, okay? So it just depends on what that looks like for your organization, okay? After you have funded the trust, now it's time for you to transfer assets into the trust. This is where everyone makes the mistake, okay? Because one, you have to list the assets inside of the trust in one of the schedules. The second thing is you have to actually legally transfer the assets. This is where people fail, right? They don't legally transfer. So, for example, if you're going to place a house into a trust, what actually shows that you're the owner of that house? The only thing that shows that you're the actual owner is the deed. So you're going to have to redeed that property into the name of the trust, right? And so this is where people fail. They do not redeed the property over. The same thing with a vehicle, right? A vehicle has what? A title, right? That's what shows that you're the owner, right? And so you're going to have to retitle that vehicle, right? But people, they fail to do so. And so those assets end up never truly being protected because they make these mistakes that I see so often, okay? I talk to hundreds of people per week and I see this mistake far too many times, okay? So don't be like them in making this mistake of setting up a trust and never legally transferring the assets, okay? So let's continue on. So remember, we are saying that you're setting up a trust for the purpose of asset protection and it's also for privacy, right? So what can a trust actually protect you from? It can protect you from bankruptcies, from divorces, from foreclosures, from heavy taxation, from lawsuits, and even probate, right? So let's talk about a few of these. The first one is divorce, right? So a lot of people, they know and understand that a divorce is a transfer of wealth, and it is also pretty much a lawsuit between two spouses. And what's included inside of the divorce is your assets and your liabilities, right? And so they are going to ask you for all of your debt, credit card debt, student loan debt, all this stuff, and then all your assets, right? So your 401k, your pension, your houses, everything, right? The beautiful thing about this is that if you set up a trust, right? Well, everything that's inside of that trust is going to be protected from your divorce because you are not the trust and the trust is not you, which means that they cannot come after what's inside of the trust. Okay. So, one, you don't have to disclose the existence of the trust. And two, they cannot pull the trust into the divorce because the divorce is between you as a person and that other individual. Okay. So the next one is heavy taxations. So a lot of us, we are giving away 40 to 50% of our annual gross income, right? And especially if we're living in states like New York and California. So with this type of trust, right? What can happen is it can protect you from heavy taxations like inheritance tax, like death tax, right? There's so many different types of taxes. And if you're properly structured with multiple trusts within your structure, then at that point you can reduce your taxes almost down to zero. So let's talk about lawsuits, right? Because a lot of us, we live in the United States of America, which is the most sue-friendly country in the entire world. Okay. The second thing is that everyone wants to sue you, and that is how you should be walking around here thinking, right? Everyone, meaning your sibling, your neighbor, your employer, your employee, your clients, everybody wants to sue you. But we walk around here thinking the opposite. We think that no one wants to sue us, right? Which is not true. So, do not make the mistakes that I see a lot of other people make, which is they walk around here thinking that they're not going to get sued, and then they wait until they're in a lawsuit, knee deep into a lawsuit, right? To actually protect themselves and protect their assets, okay? So let's just say that you're a business owner, right? Most people, they are entrepreneurs and they are operating an LLC, right? So my question to you is, what does LLC stand for? You guys could come off mute, let me know.
Limited liability
Limited
company.
liability.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Exactly. So it stands for limited liability company. Perfect. So you can actually hear it in the name of the type of company that it is, right? So now, if The company has what we call limited liability, and there's a lawsuit, right? Who do you think has that other half of that liability? Let me
Your
know.
personal, you do personally?
Correct. Yes. So if you are the owner of that business, then you will and can also be held liable, right? So if somebody tries to sue your business, right, it is so easy for them to find out who the owner is. All they have to do is go to the Secretary of State's website, put in a simple search of your business name, and all of the business information comes up, including who the owner is, right? And so then they know who to serve. And so they'll serve your company and initiate a lawsuit. Now, if you are in this lawsuit, and let's just say that you lose and there's a judgment, right? So what's going to happen is that LLC has to fulfill that judgment. If the LLC cannot fulfill the judgment, then what the judge is going to do is the judge is going to pierce through the corporate veil. The corporate veil is that little bit of protection that you thought you had with that LLC, okay? That limited protection. So if the judge pierces through the corporate veil, then they're going to go after the owner of the LLC, which is you. And that means that they're going to go after you for all of your personal assets that has nothing to do with the business because the business can't even cover the judgment. So they're going to start to garnish your wages. They're going to garnish your bank accounts, your brokerage accounts, and then they're going to start to seize your assets. So they'll seize your property, your cars, your jewelry, your expensive art pieces, whatever it is that you have, they will take it. Okay. Why? Because there's a judgment of $500,000 and you have to cover it. Right. And so you do not want that to be you. So you actually want to protect yourself from that reality. And that means that you don't want to be the owner on paper. Okay. It is very detrimental to you and your family to be the owner of your company on paper. So you actually want there to be like a separation between you and the company, which means that you need to have an entity between you all. So that entity is actually going to be a trust, okay? So you're going to set up a trust. And then you're going to remove yourself as the owner of that LLC and you're going to put the trust as the owner because now if somebody decides to sue you, they can go after the trust and not after you, okay? Which is what you want because that trust is now going to be 100% liable for anything that happens to that company. So I'm going to tell you this. If you are the owner on paper, you're not doing business the right way. Okay. And so you need to be able to put yourself in a position to where you're restructured and you can take yourself off as the owner of that company. Okay. So let me just show you a quick,
Just a quick story.
hold on one second. Let me just share with you a quick story from one of our clients. Hold on one second. Share. Boom.
Just a quick story of why I'm here. I was sued. I lost everything. And when I say everything, I'm talking about a $700,000 house. I'm talking about 4 vehicles. I'm talking about my bank account. I'm talking about my life savings. I believed in having 6 months of expenses put up, saved up just in case anything happened, lost a career and stuff like that. All of that was gone. And there was no protection for me. Then I had my third bout with cancer. I haven't had any income since 2020, since COVID. As I told you, I think yesterday, I've been looking for a way to protect myself because I have children that are going to depend on me. So I would encourage anyone that would listen to anything that has been taught and said by you, please, 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 if you work hard to gain assets, do whatever you can do to protect your assets. Why do you think they've hid this from us for so long? Why do you think they were the only ones that were saying trust fund babies? It was because they were the only ones who were privileged to know this, who was privy to this knowledge. Now we have it through Christina. And I thank you for your level of knowledge and for not being a gatekeeper and for giving us what we need to know in order to make this happen. So please, 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 if you endeavor to get anything in this world and to keep anything in this world, please, please, please protect it. Get your trusts. And I have no reason other than my knowledge and what I've been through. But the only reason I'm here is because I've been through it. So I would encourage anyone.
All right, you guys. So, with that being said, you do not want to wait until you're getting sued or in the middle of a lawsuit to protect yourself, right? So, now let's talk about the last one, which is probate. So, my question to you is if you have this house, right? This house that is in your personal name and you didn't wake up tomorrow, right? How do you expect that house to be transferred to your son or your daughter or your children? That's my question. You guys could come off mute. Let me know. Come on. I know I'm not here by myself.
Should be through the will.
Okay, that's a good guess. I love it. So the way that it happens is, right, if this house is in your personal name and you didn't wake up, your signature is required in order for that house to be transferred to your children. So the house is not going to be transferred to your children. So what's going to happen is it's going to take a judge to be able to transfer that property into your children's name. So it's going to be their decision. It's going to be their decision if they want to go ahead and transfer that property into your children's name. So what's happening is you're actually leaving it up to a judge that doesn't know you and a judge that does not know your children. You're leaving it up to that individual to make the decision if your kids get their inheritance, which is so detrimental. Okay. So I love how you mentioned the word will because a lot of us think that the will is the end all be all, right? So someone in the chat said probate is the worst. It really is, right? I actually spoke to someone yesterday who said that they have been in probate for 10 years. They have been in probate for 10 years, which is very devastating. So, a lot of people think that the will is the end all be all, but you have to understand that a will is designed to go into probate. So it will go to probate. And the reason being is because it's your last will and testament, which means that it is your last wishes of how you want all of your assets to be divided. So it is a wish list. And on that wish list, you're putting, I wish my daughter will get my house. I wish my son will get the cash and the cars, right? So that's what you're putting on the wish list. But you are the will is automatically going to probate, right? Because it's designed to be a set of instructions that is going to be carried out in probate, right? So it automatically goes to probate, right? So you have to understand that a will cannot own anything. A will is not an entity. So your will is not an end all be all. So please don't think that you're safe by saying and walking around here like other people that I see, right? Oh, I have a will, so my kids are fine, or I'm fine, or my assets are fine. No, they're not fine, right? Because a will cannot own anything, but a trust can. A trust can own your house and your assets, right? A trust is an entity, right? So it's very different, but everything that's inside of the will can go into the trust and then the will becomes obsolete, okay? So let me just quickly give you a rundown of what probate looks like, right? Because a lot of us, we are not too sure of what we are about to drag our family through, right? So when it comes to probate, right? What happens is, let's just say that you have that beautiful house with the white picket fence, right? Let's just say you have a nice car, you have $300,000 in the bank, right? You have jewelry, whatever it is that you have, right? You have all of these assets, right? And you didn't wake up tomorrow and all of those assets are in your personal name. Well, what's going to happen is because you did not have an estate, because you did not set up a trust, then what's going to happen is the state where you're a resident, they're going to have to create an estate for you because you didn't do it yourself. So now it's up to them to be able to do it for you. Okay. So, for example, if you are a resident of Texas, now Texas has to create an estate. So if your name is John Doe, they're going to create the John Doe estate. Okay. Then they are going to transfer all of your assets into that estate. Okay. So now that all of your assets are in your living estate that they have created for a dead person, that estate needs to be represented in probate court. So it's going straight into probate court. It's going to be represented by a probate attorney. And the first thing that the judge does is the probate judge is going to go ahead and pay off your liabilities. Okay. So, what are they going to pay off? Well, if you had credit card debt, if you had student loan debt, if you had personal loans, mortgages, car loans, things of that nature, all of those liabilities need to be paid off. You have outstanding loans and credit cards and lines of credit, right? And then another thing that a lot of people don't think about is the type of medical bills that they're going to rack up at the end of life. It is absolutely detrimental, right? You didn't think that you was going to be sitting in the ICU for 10 days and now you have a bill of $600,000. You did not think that. And trust and believe that the hospital wants to get paid, the doctors want to get paid, the emergency room wants to get paid, the EMT services want to get paid, right? And then if Medicaid or Medicare covered your services, guess what they want? To be reimbursed, right? And if it's not the hospital, then it's the nursing home, it's the assisted living facility, it's the rehabilitation center, right? So there's so much medical bills that you're going to rack up at the end of life, to be very honest with you. And I know this because I was a nurse at a hospital, right? And so I've experienced seeing so many people transition and they just sitting in the hospital for weeks on end until that happens. Okay. So you don't want that to be you, right? And when I tell you, I speak to hundreds of people, right? So what happens is, remember, Medicare and Medicaid, they want to be reimbursed. The hospital wants to be reimbursed, right? But your estate only has 300,000, but you were sitting in the ICU for a week and a half, and so your medical bills are 600,000. So what do you think they're going to do? The judge is going to liquidate your assets in order to reimburse Medicare, Medicaid, General Hospital, right? So, what they are going to do, the judge has now decided to sell your house, and your children are now put in a situation where they are either fighting each other sometimes in the probate court system, which is why, unfortunately, these types of court proceedings are dragged on for years instead of months. And then they begin to fight the court system to keep mom's house, to keep dad's house, right? And so you're actually doing your children a disservice by dragging them through the court system because unfortunately, you have to understand that they just lost the most important person in their entire life, right? I know because I lost my mom. So the last thing that you want is for your children to be dragged into the court system, into probate court, fighting to keep mom's house. So please don't let that be you, and please don't let that be your children. You have to allow them to grieve in peace, not for them to be fighting the court system and the government, okay? So that is actually what happens, right? So the judge is going to pay off those liabilities, and then whatever is left over is what your children get. So if they decide to liquidate your assets and there's only $30,000 left over, that's what your kids get, the leftovers, unfortunately, which is something that can be avoided, right? It is detrimental to your family for them to receive the leftovers when you knew this entire time that you wanted them to receive their entire inheritance. But there was one step that you failed to do. You failed to set up the estate while you were living. You let the state of Texas do it, right? And you have to understand the state of Texas is always going to be working in their best interest, right? And in the interest of their subsidiaries, right? Not in your interest, not at all. Okay. So now that you understand, right, that probate can be avoided, what I want you to know is that the only way to avoid probate, right? Because probate, right, we're all going to go through it unless we have a trust. So it's very important for us to, one, set up a trust and for us to place our assets into a trust. Remember, I told you the biggest mistake that people make is that they never legally transfer the assets after they set the trust up, okay? So it's not only setting up the trust, it's actually transferring the assets inside of the trust. The house, the car, the bank accounts, the money, the jewelry, everything, okay? That is what you need to do. So now let's just say that you have decided, yeah, you know what? I'm going to get my affairs in order. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to set up my trust estate now while I'm living. I set up the trust. I transferred my house, my car, the cash money and everything. I have nothing in my personal name. If I didn't wake up tomorrow, guess what? The entire probate system is avoided. Why? Because one, I'm the one who transitioned, the trust didn't transition. The trust still exists, okay? And the trust is designed to exist for hundreds of years. So the trust remains intact and it remains the owner of all of my assets, right? And I appointed a successor. The successor trustee is going to take over where I left off, and they're going to continue to operate the trust. My children are the beneficiaries. My children are going to reap the benefits, right? And they're going to receive distributions and gifts from the trust because the trust has assets, the trust has money, and the trust has tangible assets. And so my children are going to receive their entire inheritance, right? The government, the court system, they're not even going to touch anything, right? And so that's what you want to happen. And now my children get to grieve in peace because they don't have to be dragged through the probate court system. And the beautiful thing about this, the last part that I want you to know is that the debt that I had at the end of life, meaning the random student loans, from 30 years ago, the credit card bills, the medical bills, all of that debt dies with me. Why? Because I didn't have any assets in my personal name. So those creditors have nothing to go after. So those creditors have to discharge the debt, period. That is the process that you want your family to go through versus the way that you're set up right now. So let's continue on. So let's dive right back into the presentation. So the next thing that I want to tell you guys about is the wealth building formula. Okay, so I have three pillars here. I have structure, credit, and invest. Okay, so in the first pillar, we are talking about structure. So if you do not have trust within your structure, guess what? It's time to get restructured. Because one, you should have trust within your structure, and two, you should have for-profits and nonprofits within your structure, okay? So that is so, so important, okay? Now, these are the three trusts that I recommend. I recommend that you have a business trust, that you have a family trust, and that you have a tax-exempt trust, okay? So let's break down all three of these trusts. The first one is the business trust. Now, the way that this trust is designed, it's designed to work in two different ways. One, you can actually set up a traditional business and you can operate it out of a business trust versus going and opening up an LLC or a corporation. The second way that it is designed is as a holding company, meaning that you'll set up the trust and the trust will be non-operational. So that means that it doesn't have any products or services or employees, and it's going to be used to hold the other assets, meaning it's going to hold the LLCs and the corporations. So remember earlier when I said if you have an LLC, you want to go ahead and create a trust, and it's specifically a business trust, okay? Because that's the way the contract's designed. So you want to go ahead and set up a business trust so that the business trust is the owner of the LLC versus you, okay? And so that business trust is now going to be operated as a holding company, okay? So where it's going to hold the LLC just in case something happens, okay? So that's the way that you want to operate it. Now, let's just say that this LLC is generating, $100,000 a year, right? That LLC can actually distribute that money straight to the benefit, straight to the business trust, right? And so the business trust now has just brought in 100,000 in income, and the business trust is a for-profit entity, right? So with this for-profit entity, it's designed to pay taxes. Okay. So the tax bracket is anywhere between 10% upwards of 37%, just depending on the income that comes into the organization. Now, with that type of trust, right? The beautiful thing that I love about a trust is that you get to spend the money first and then you're taxed on whatever's left over. So because it's so powerful like this, if you have $100,000, what are you going to do? You're going to spend the money first, and whatever's left over is what you're going to be taxed on. So what you're spending the money on is what we call operating expenses, or OPEX, okay? So what does it cost to administer the trust, to maintain the trust, to manage the trust? What are your operating expenses? So let's just say that for the business trust, right, your operating expenses are equivalent to $30,000. That means that out of that 100,000, you're going to be writing off 30,000, and now you have 100,000 you have 70,000 that's left out of that 100,000, right? So you just wrote off 30,000, you have 70,000. What are you going to do with that 70,000? Because last time I checked, you have to pay taxes on it, right? So the beautiful thing about a trust, right, that no other entity can do, only a trust can do this, is it can actually distribute to the beneficiaries because it has beneficiaries, right? So with that being said, if the trust distributes to the beneficiaries, then that distribution is 100% tax deductible, right? So what does that actually look like? Well, if I am going to distribute the 70,000 to the beneficiaries, then now I'm writing it off on the business trust. So if I'm writing it off, that means that I have just wrote off 100% of the money because it was $100,000. 30,000 was written off as operating expense and 70,000 was written off as a distribution. So I have $0 left inside of the trust, right? That's going to be taxed. And if you're taxed on zero, that means that your tax liability is zero, okay? Which is good. That is what we want, right? So now that we know that the 70,000 went to the business trust, what you also need, that the 70,000 went to the beneficiary, what you also need to know is that the beneficiary is going to be the family trust. The reason why we do that is because we need money to move from the business trust into the family trust to provide for the family, because we're entrepreneurs, we're business owners, right? And so the business is what's generating the money in order to provide for and take care of the family. So the family trust is the beneficiary of the business trust, and the $70,000 went straight to the family trust. So we're done with the business trust because now we're paying zero in taxes. Let's move down to the family trust. So with the family trust, right, we just received 70,000 in income. We have to pay taxes. But one of the beautiful things is that you're going to spend the money first and then you're taxed on the leftovers. So now we get a whole new set of expenses, okay? Operating expenses. So what does it cost in order to take care of the family? Well, we have kids' tuition, we have a car note, we have gasoline, we have utility bills, we have a mortgage, we have property taxes, we have groceries, we have insurance policies, we have so much bills, right? And so all of that is tax deductible for the family trust. So that means that we racked up all these bills that cost about $60,000. So we're going to have a tax deduction of $60,000 in operating expenses. And now there's only $10,000 that's left over. So normally we would pay 10% on 10,000, which is only $1,000, right? Which is not bad, right? Versus the other thing that we can do is we can do a contribution. So a contribution is where we're able to donate to a charity of our choice, right? We're able to do a charitable contribution. Now, the beautiful thing about our structure is that we have a charity, right? We have a tax exempt nonprofit trust that we are operating as a nonprofit or a charity or a school or a church, however we want to operate it, right? And so that $10,000, we're going to donate it to our charity, right? And so now on the family trust level, what happened? 70,000 came in, 60,000 was deducted off of operating expenses, 10,000 was donated to our charity. So we're done paying taxes on the family trust because we brought it down to zero. Now, the beneficiaries of our family trust are our children, okay? Now let's move on to the tax exempt trust. So this is a tax exempt organization that you can operate as a faith-based organization. You can operate as a church, a school. You can operate it for religious reasons, charitable reasons, or education reasons, okay? Now, it's automatically exempt from not having to file federal taxes with the IRS, okay? As long as the money that comes into the organization is labeled as a tithe offering or a donation, okay? So it's very important for you to do proper record keeping with this type of trust organization, okay? So the one beautiful thing that I absolutely love is, let's just say that you're a W-2 employee, right? The IRS will allow you to donate up to 60% of your annual gross income to this organization, okay? To your trust. And if, let's just say that you make 100,000 for the year, if you donate up to 60%, that's 60,000 that you're placing inside of your trust, right? Tax exempt. And now, what's going to happen is, instead of you paying taxes on 100,000, now you get to only pay taxes on 40,000, which is going to help you save thousands of dollars that you can use somewhere else, right? You can use it in order to acquire assets. Okay. So let's move on to the next tier. So the next pillar is credit. And what I need you to know is that you want to be able to leverage OPM, other people's money, in order to be able to build wealth efficiently and effectively, okay? So what I mean by this is, you want to use the bank's money, because you have to understand that the bank is using your money, right? The bank is leveraging your money every single time that you place your paycheck into the bank, right? What's happening? Your money is not there. You think that your money is there, but we operate in a fractional reserve system. Your money is not there. Only a fraction of it is there, okay? So that means that they are actually getting rich off of you, because your deposit is actually a loan. You're loaning them money to the bank, and then the bank is loaning it back to you, right? The bank is loaning it to other people, where they're giving out mortgages and student loans and credit cards and car loans, right? And they are getting rich, right? And so you need to adopt that same system, to where you are going to leverage OPM, other people's money, meaning the bank's money, to get rich. Okay. So the one thing that I need you to know is that you want to be able to build credit, right? Build business credit specifically, and you can build it for the business trust, right? So a trust can actually build credit. That's one thing that you need to know. And you want it to build business credit. So it builds credit just like an LLC or a corporation off of the EIN number, okay? And you want to leverage a second credit profile, right? With your personal credit, it's okay, but usually you can only qualify for like lower amounts of lines of credit, right? Versus a business trust, right, that has business credit, can qualify for higher lines of credit, like 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, right? Versus what you qualify for personally, okay? So keep that in mind. Now let's move on to the last pillar, which is invest. So these are the two assets that you need to have inside of your trust if you are intentional about building generational wealth. Because a lot of us, we're talking about we're building generational wealth, but we're not really building wealth, right? Because it's not going to last. It's not going to last the next generation if we don't have the right tools, right? So let's talk about the first one, which is an index universal life insurance policy. So a lot of people think that life insurance is supposed to be used when they're dead. But in all actuality, life insurance is supposed to be used when you are living. There's a lot of living benefits in life insurance, right? So one of them is that whatever money that you're placing inside of your life insurance policy, it is going to be accumulating tax-free. Another thing is that your money is protected, meaning that if somebody tries to sue you personally, they cannot go after the money that you have in your life insurance policy. The third thing is that let's just say that you become terminally ill or you have like a major um acute illness, then what's going to happen is you can access up to 80 to 90% of your death benefit, right? So let's just say your death benefit is $1 million, they'll give you $800,000, right? So that's a beautiful thing. The next thing is that you have a death benefit, right? And so your life is insured, and let's just say that something happens to you and you transition and your death benefit's $1 million, then the $1 million is going to go to your beneficiary, okay? Now, the most beautiful thing about this type of policy is that it builds cash value. So, what is cash value, right? It is a separate bucket that is inside of your life insurance policy where that is liquid cash that you have inside of your life insurance policy, okay? And the way that that cash is building is every single time that you're paying your premiums, right? So let's just say that your premium is $100 a month, right? Well, when you pay that $100 a month, let's just say there's an 80-20 split on that premium. $20 is going to go towards the carrier, and that's the cost of insurance. Then $80 is going to go to your cash value. That $80 is going to start to accumulate every single month. Every time that you pay your premiums, you have $80, right? Then you have another 80 and another 80 and another 80, right? And so it's accumulating, right? Which is a beautiful thing. But there's an added bonus to that. Not only is the cash value accumulating, it's also going to earn compound interest with this type of policy. The reason being is because of the index, right? So you see the word index in the actual name of this policy. The word index is actually referring to an indice. That is an indice in the stock market, you guys. So the stock market has many different indices. It has the Dow Jones, the NASDAQ, and the S&P 500. So let's just say that we're working with the S&P 500, right? The S&P stands for Standard & Poor's 500, and 500 is referring to the top 500 companies in this country in the United States of America. So what we're saying is that this index is tracking the top 500 companies like Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft, and all the big names, right? So generally, that indice is going to give you about 8 to 10% annually. So what we're saying here is that your cash value, right? The carrier is not going to invest your cash value into the market, right? And so this is going to be a risk-free investment, saying that your money is not in the stock market because just in case the stock market crashes, then your money's all gone. We don't want that to happen, and we're not willing to take that risk. So instead of us investing your money into the stock market, what we'll do is we'll mirror the stock market and then we'll give you a return, right? And so that's exactly what they do. So if the stock market is doing 9%, then guess what? They're going to give you a 9% return on your cash value. So now your cash value is going to be accumulating not only cash money, but it's going to be earning compound interest off of that cash money, which is a beautiful thing. That is what you want. You want to be able to park your money into places where it is actually earning more money, right? Every single dollar that you have, you need to go ahead and put that money to work, right? And you need to put it in places where it's going to bring back friends. Every single dollar is going to go out. It's going to do its own 9 to 5 thing, and it's going to come back and bring back 10 cents, 15 cents, 25 cents, right? That is what building wealth looks like, right? A lot of us, we have bought into this lie that society has given us, which is, work for 40 hours, work for 40 years, and retire when you're 65 years old, right? But in all actuality, what we want right now is we want time freedom, location freedom, and financial freedom. We want to get out of the rat race, right? We want to stop living paycheck to paycheck. And so that's going to take a mindset shift, right? It's going to take us to be able to put ourselves in a position to where we're saying, hey, I don't have to work for money anymore. I can have my money work for me. I am going to stop trading my time for money, and I am actually going to leverage the money that I have and park it in the places where it's going to multiply. It's going to quadruple. It's going to double. That is what you need to do, right? And I know this for a fact because that is what I did. That's how I was able to leave my career, right? Because I decided not to buy into the lie that society has told us, right? And I decided to unplug from that traditional system because they program us in that way from kindergarten, right? From kindergarten all the way up to high school, and then even in college, they have institutionalized us to where you go to a place and you spend 8 hours there, and then you go home and you have a couple more hours, you go to bed, you go to bed, you wake up and you do it all over again, right? And so that is us literally being on that hamster wheel. So it's going to take a mindset shift for us to decide to move out of the hamster wheel, right? And so what I want you to know is that you do not have to trade your time for money, and that it is going to be scary for you to decide, hey, I want to take a mindset shift, right? I want to go ahead and think differently, and I want to do differently so I can get different results. I want to be able to put my money in places to where it's going to work for me, right? I want to be able to put my money in places to where I'm paying myself first instead of last, right? Which is super duper duper important because a lot of us, right, when we're programmed like this, we think that that the government is going to take care of us at the end, right? Which is not true, right? You cannot depend on the government. You cannot depend on Social Security. That cannot be your plan A, right? So you need to actually create your own plan A, which is you building wealth with a trust, you guys, okay? So with that being said, the last thing I wanted to tell you is that the banks, right? You have to understand, right? The banks, their number one asset is life insurance policies. So it is what we call BOLI. I need you to Google it, okay? It's BOLI, bank-owned life insurance. So if their number one asset is life insurance, what do you think your number one asset should be? And I want to hear you guys say it. What do you think your number one asset?
Life insurance,
Thank you,
life
thank you.
insurance, life insurance, life insurance. Build it
Oh,
up. Let's go.
okay,
Stack
okay.
it up. Let's go.
Yay! I love it. I love it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So if the bank's number one asset is life insurance, your number one asset is to be life insurance. Now, the way that we tie this together with the trust is the trust is going to be the owner of your life insurance policy. You are going to be the insured. Okay. So they're insuring your life, and the trust is going to pay the premiums every single month, and the trust is going to be the beneficiary, because if something happens to you, that trust is devastated and that trust needs to be compensated. So that means that that $2 million death benefit that you had, it needs to go straight into the life insurance, excuse me, straight into the trust, okay? Which is extremely powerful. It is powerful, 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 okay? If you are not structured like this, it's time to get restructured, okay? So now let's talk about real estate really quickly because that's my favorite thing on earth. Okay, I have been investing in real estate for 11 years. I have a real estate investment firm. That is my first business. Okay, my real estate investment firm, the net worth is 7 figures. Okay, so I know what I'm talking about when it comes to real estate. Remember earlier in this call, I told you guys that I bought this first property right in Miami for 89,000, sold it for 235. I did not use any of my own money. I put $0 into that project, right? So what I want to do quickly is show you that you guys can acquire real estate with not even using any of your own money, with zero down, right? And so this is the way that you're going to do it. So when it comes to real estate, right, you have to understand that a trust can actually own real estate. So a trust can own investment properties. A trust can also get a mortgage, right? A trust can also get a home equity line of credit. So there's so many different financial products that a trust can acquire, right? And actually use those type of loans in order to start to accumulate the wealth, right? Because what you want to do is you want to put yourself in a position to where the trust is sustaining itself, right? I see this mistake all the time, right? I have been in this industry for over a decade to where people are pouring in their W-2 money into the trust. That's backwards. What you need to do is you need to have the trust accumulate assets so the trust can sustain itself and then the trust can pay you, right? And then you don't have to trade your time for money anymore. And so the way that we're going to do that is one, we're going to get investment properties, right? These are properties that are not owner occupied, right? So you're not living inside of them. You are going to be cash flowing and you're going to have tenants. So let's just say that we go and we purchase a property. It's a fourplex, right? And so we got four doors, one roof, beautiful. And so what we want to do is we want to get an investment loan. So one of my favorite loans that I have been leveraging throughout these years is a DSCR loan, right? DSCR stands for debt service coverage ratio loan. And so with that type of loan, it's for entities, right? And it's for investment properties, okay? And they will give you, for this type of loan, for this mortgage, they'll give you up to 80% of what it costs to purchase that investment, okay? So all you have to do is come up with 20%, right? And so the way that we come up with 20% is by going back to what I said, OPM, other people's money, the bank's money. So what you need to do is you need to build business credit, right? You can do it with LLCs, you can do it with a business trust. So let's just say our business trust has established credit through the EIN. So now we are qualifying for credit cards for 50,000 and 100,000, right? And so at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to liquidate that credit card, okay? And we're going to utilize that money as a down payment for the real estate. So right now, we got a credit card for 50,000. We're going to liquidate it. That money is going straight into our bank account. So the first thing that we're going to do before we even decide to go to the closing table and decide to purchase this fourplex, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to pay ourselves first. And the way that we pay ourselves first is by moving that money into our life insurance policy. So that is how you pay yourself first, because we do not do this. We always want to pay ourselves last. We always want to pay everybody else first except us. No. What we're going to do is we're going to move that money into our life insurance policy where we are the insured, right? And so now that that money has been moved into your life insurance policy, guess what happens? Your cash value. Your cash value just went up by $50,000, right? Which is absolutely beautiful, because remember, when you're building cash value with, depending on the type of policy that you have, right? And I will tell you, I know this firsthand because I have 5 IUL policies, okay? So depending on the type of policy you have, it'll earn compound interest. So for the IULs, it's going to earn compound interest, okay? So with that being said, that $50,000 is now going to earn let's just say 9%, 8%, 9%, 10, 11, 12, whatever the market is doing, right? So now we're earning 9%, 9% off of $50,000 that's sitting inside our cash value, which is beautiful. Okay. So now we're putting our money to work, and that 50,000 that we just liquidated from our credit cards, it has just been parked in the first place, right? So now what we need to do is we need to park it in the second place. So what we're going to do is we're going to contact the carrier and we're going to tell the carrier, hey, I need a loan. And you have to understand that the carrier looks at your whole entire life insurance policy is a liquid asset, okay? And so they're going to look at your cash value as collateral, meaning that, hey, if I give John a loan, right, and if he doesn't pay me back, then I'm just going to take the money off of the cash value, right? So they'll lend you, depending on the carrier, they'll lend you up to 95% of what's inside of your cash value. Okay. So if you have 50,000 in there, they're going to say, okay, well, we'll lend you 48,500, right? And so the carrier is actually lending you that money from their own reserves, from their bank account. They're not touching your cash value. Your cash value is sitting inside of your policy, earning compound interest. It's still working for you, right? All of those dollars are going, they're being pimped, right? They're going out and bringing back friends every single time, right? And so you requested that loan, and so the carrier has now done a direct deposit, and they have now placed $48,500 into your bank account. So now you have that liquid cash that you're going to use as a down payment. So now we're back to real estate, right? So you have this fourplex that you're going and purchasing, and you have 80% from the DSCR, and now you have 20% from that 48,500. So now you have just acquired this property. You have four doors, right? And so let's just say that it's 2,000 a door, right? So 2, 4, 6, 8, we got $8,000 that we're cash flowing. That is the name of the game. What you want to do is you want to have income producing assets that's going to cash flow for your trust, okay? Which then is going to trickle down to you and your family, okay? And so now we have this 8,000, right? So it is the first of the month. Let me ask you guys another question. This is a pop quiz, and I hope y'all get it right. So we have this 8,000. It's the first of the month. We just collected. Everybody's on time. We're good, right? We just got $8,000 in liquid cash. What is the first thing that you're going to do with that $8,000 in liquid cash?
Deposit it.
Deposit it in the life insurance, IUL.
Right.
Let's go, Faith. Look at that. Mm. I'm so proud of you. Yeah, Faith, and who else said it? Who else came off mute?
That was me. I was gonna say the same thing.
Yes, let's go, Rome.
Deposit.
Okay. Awesome. I'm proud of you guys. So you guys are absolutely correct, right? So they already did the mindset shift, you guys. Okay. Rome and Faith, they got it down packed. They said, I'm going to pay myself first, right? Because at the end of the day, I just got $8,000, right? And instead of me paying who? Let's just say you pay the water, right? Let's just say you pay the mortgage company. Let's just say you paying the credit card company, right? Instead of you paying all these other companies first, what you have decided to do is I'm going to pay myself first. This $8,000 is going right into my IUL. Now my cash value has gone up. Now I'm going to be accumulating 9, 10, 11% off of that $8,000, right? And now I'm going to contact the carrier and I'm going to borrow some money out. So let's just say we borrow 7,000 now. So now the 7,000 is going to be used to cover the mortgage, right? The mortgage is only 2,500. Then it's going to be covering the credit card, right? The credit card, let's just say it's 1,000, right? And so now whatever is left over, it goes straight into the trust, right? And so that's for maintenance, and that's going to just accumulate so that we can acquire the next asset. And so what we're going to do is we're going to rinse and repeat. We are going to then be able to do this a second time, a third time, and a fourth time. This is the wealth building formula, you guys. This is the formula that you want to take in order to build wealth efficiently and effectively, in order to build generational wealth that's actually going to last the second, third, fourth, fifth generation, right? Do you know the statistics when it comes to inheritance? Do you know that about 90 to 95% of that second generation actually loses the inheritance? Why? Because we didn't protect it, right? And so it's up to us to be able to protect it, right? And so a lot of us, we never even thought to ourselves, how am I going to actually transfer this wealth? Right? We never even think that. And so you need to actually put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything. And I'm going to say that again because it's super powerful. Put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything. That is what stewardship is, right? Stewardship versus ownership. So a lot of us, we have bought into the lie that society has told us, right? And we really need to stop doing that, right? Because they don't have our best interests. You have to understand the government has their best interests, not yours, right? So with that being said, the lie that society has told us is to be the proud owners of everything, right? So we're the proud owner of our house. We're the proud owner of our car. We're the proud owner of our bank account, right? Everything has our name in it. Whenever they ask you for your identity, what are you doing? You're putting your name and social on everything quick, right? And what? You're all over the public records. They're able to track you. They know how much you make. They know everything. Why? Because your name and social is on everything. It's a tracking system, right? And so, yeah, we really have no choice until we decide to remove ourselves from the tracking system and say, hey, I want to do it another way, right? I want to do it to where I'm going to use this entity and I'm going to use the 9-digit number that you give that entity. And now I'm going to be doing things for the entity, right? And I'm on the background signing, right? That's how you need to be operating. You need to be a good steward of the assets that you're going to be acquiring for the trust versus ownership. Because at the end of the day, what you need to realize is that house that you have, right? That beautiful house that they have programmed you, right, into what do we call it? We call it the nuclear family, right? Nuclear family, which is what? The big house, the white picket fence, the dog, the two parents working, kids in school, everything, right? That's the nuclear family, right? This is what they brainwashed us into wanting and desiring. So, with that being said, the house, right, where you and your children live. If you don't wake up tomorrow, that house is still going to be there. Is it not? Somebody let me know if that house is still going to be there if you don't wake up tomorrow.
Still there.
Okay, thank you. Exactly. He knows it's still going to be there. So if the house is still going to be there, was the desire for you to actually own the house in your name, or was the desire for you to actually control the house while you were living here on earth? What was the true desire?
Control it.
Control it. Exactly. So that's why you need to put yourself in a position to where you don't own anything in your personal name, but you control everything. And that's what a trust can give you. The trust can give you that power, that authority. You can operate in that capacity. You're going to be operating as a trustee. You're going to be changing the trajectory of your family, of your kids. It just takes one little tweak. But you guys already know that. Why? Because you're here right now today. Getting this information is so important, right? Especially if you have children. I have 3 kids. People think that I have 0 children. No, I have 3 children, and they are trust fund babies. And I tell them every single day, they know I'm raising them to be trustees. You need to be raising your children to be trustees versus how you're raising them. You're raising them the way that you got raised, which is go to school, get a degree, and then maybe you'll have a good career. And then maybe, you know, you'll be able to save some money. And then you go and buy a house. And then you go and work the 40 years. No, we're not doing that. No. So that is a generational curse, right? And so we that are here on this call today, we are generational curse breakers. And so we're going to break the chains of poverty that has been sitting in our family lineage for years and years and years. And it starts with you. That's why you're on this call right now. The type of individual that I am, I'm a generational curse breaker. So what do? I attract other like-minded people. So that's what you are. You don't even have to tell me. I just know just by you being here, okay? So that's exactly what we need to do. We need to change the trajectory of our kids, and it takes one strong person, and that strong person is you. It takes one person that's gonna look fear in the face and say, you know what? I'm tired. I'm not gonna do this anymore. I'm not gonna keep working this 9 to 5 and trading my time for money. I'm not gonna keep, getting all these liabilities and not accumulating assets. I'm not gonna keep not leveraging the banks and OPM. I'm not going to keep doing it, right? I'm going to get off of the treadmill, off of the hamster wheel, right? So now when it comes to us actually not only building the wealth, right, but actually transferring the wealth, right? What does that look like? Well, we have children. These children are going to be beneficiaries. We're going to give them trust certificate units, right? And so if we're giving them trust certificate units, those stand for TCUs, okay? And with the TCUs, they are just like stock certificates. So you know how stock certificates represents ownership in a corporation? TCUs represents beneficial interest in a trust. So what we're saying is that our children, right? The trust it automatically creates 100 TCUs. Let's just say I'm your beneficiary and you give me 50 TCUs. That means that, right? That means that I have half of the beneficial interest inside of the trust. If the trust is worth $1 million, that means that my TCUs are equivalent to $500,000, right? Which is beautiful, right? And so if anything happens to where the trust is terminated or dissolved, then I'm getting a check for $500,000. Why? Because I have TCUs, I have 50 of them, and then I go and cash them in, okay? So that is how your children are going to receive their inheritance. But let's just say the trust is not dissolved and terminated, then guess what? Their TCUs are going to go to the next generation, which is powerful, right? That's beautiful. And so a lot of us, right, we never even think about how, like, we're so focused on making money, and I know that making money is a beautiful thing, but that's not the end all be all, right? And I know that you guys have heard it. It's not how much you make, it's how much you keep, right? And that is extremely powerful because guess what? If you make 100,000 in a year, but you only keep $100 versus the other person that makes 50,000 and they keep 48,000. So, with that being said, right, we never think to ourselves, we're so focused on making the money, we never think, how am I going to preserve this money? How am I going to conserve this money? What does that look like? How many times have we seen it to where celebrities, the athletes, let's talk about the athletes, right? $100 million deals, and they blow it in their lifetime. How dare you? Or their kids blow it, right? How many times have we seen it where famous families, they end up homeless? What? How could that happen? The only way that that could happen is one, if they didn't have a trust, and two, if they were not having practices of preservation and conservation. That's the only way, right? So you cannot be walking around here talking about you're building generational wealth, but you don't have the tools to build generational wealth, right? And you don't have the tools to preserve the wealth. There's two tools that you need. The first one is the trust. The second one is the life insurance policies. The reason being is because you have to understand that the trust has many assets. The trust has a house, so it has homeowners insurance. The trust has a car, so it has automobile insurance. The trust has cash money, it has FDIC. The trust has human assets. Those human assets are you and me. So if we're in human asset, guess what? We need to be insured. So the trust is going to insure every human asset that's a part of the trust, which means that the trust is going to insure you. The trust is going to insure the current beneficiaries. The trust is going to insure the future beneficiaries that are born into the trust that are called trust fund babies. That's where we get the term trust fund baby from. When a baby is born into the trust organization, that's a trust fund baby. And the first thing that you do with that trust fund baby, if you're the trustee, you take out a policy on that baby. As soon as that baby's 30 days old, we're going to take out an index universal life insurance policy. Do you know how much cash value is going to be accumulating when the trust takes out an IUL policy on that trust fund baby, and now the trust is paying $100 premium every single month? That $80 is accumulating, but then it's also compounding. That's beautiful because now that is us building wealth, right? The trust is building wealth, right? Off of its human asset, which is what we want. This is what it's designed to do. Now, let's just say that this trust fund baby, right? This trust fund baby grows up, they're 18 years old. They're like, hey, I'm going to college. I need a new set of Hot Wheels, right? Easily, the trust fund baby can go down to the dealership, pull their credit, get into a car loan, 30,000 a month, $1,000, $30,000 car, $1,000 a month, easy, right? Or because they are a trust fund baby, they can go to the trust. And if they go to the trust, then what's going to happen is they can request a loan. So beneficiaries and trustees can receive loans and give loans to the trust. So now that they are requesting a loan, what's going to happen is they are the trustee is actually going to write them a check for 30,000, hand it straight to the beneficiary, the trust fund baby. So now what's going to happen is they're going to go and buy that car cash, and now we want to demonstrate some form of responsibility. So we're going to tell them, hey, instead of you paying the dealership 1,000, you're going to pay us, the trust, 300 a month. So now the trust fund baby is paying the trust 300 a month. Let's just say a year into the future, the trust fund baby's like, I don't want to pay the trust no more, and they default. Well, that is perfectly okay because it was a risk-free loan. And the reason why it was a risk-free loan is because the loan did not originate from the trust. The loan actually originated from that trust fund baby's life insurance policies. And as you may know, the loans do not have to be paid back. So did you know that when you take out a loan from the life insurance carrier, you don't have to pay back? And the reason being is because they automatically deduct it from your death benefit. So that 30,000 is going to be deducted from that death benefit. So let's just say that the trust fund baby transitions, right? They have a $3 million death benefit minus 30,000, whatever's left over, boom, it goes to the trust. And guess what? The trust is replenished, right? That is extremely powerful. And that is a practice that we all need to be doing, right? It is so important for us to think in this direction, right? Versus the way that we've been traditionally thinking, which is not for our best interest. So let's go ahead and land this plane. What I want to do is tell you guys about the books that I recommend. So the first one is What Would the Rockefellers Do? That's a really good book that teaches you about the trust and the life insurance policies and how to put them together. The next one is The Art of Passing the Buck, Volume 1 and 2, which teaches you about trusteeship. The next one is Family Wealth, which teaches you about how to run your family like a business. We all need to be running our family like a business. You have to understand that you are the CEO of your family. You have to understand that your spouse is the CFO of your family, right? Your children are secretaries, right? And then the last one is the Complete Book of Trust that teaches you about the different types of trust, you guys, right? So now I want to show you a quick video of one of our clients that took action on the information that I provided you guys with tonight. Because you have to understand, it is so important, not only for you to be able to listen to this information, but for you to apply it, right? Do you know how many, I already told you guys, I talk to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people every single week. Do you know how many people that I've spoken to that they're like, yeah, well, I've known about trust for 5 years, or I've researched trust for 5 and 6 and 7 years. And my question is, why haven't you done anything? If you've known about trust for 5 and 6 years, you are doing your family a disservice if anything happens, right?
Just a
Well, kudos to you all. Again, Christina, it's been a wonderful experience. I've been looking at your videos on YouTube for a while, and there are a number of people offering trust these days, and I guess that's the big thing. Don't own anything, control everything. That kind of, I didn't say it correctly, but that is the sentiment. And so it seems like the playing field is being leveled now from the rich and people who weren't privy to this information. So thank you for being such a great asset to a community that didn't have this information. And you made it so simple. Thank you for the recordings. Thank you for the step-by-step instructions. things that we can go back and look at. So we do appreciate you, and thank you, Mondo. That was a great explanation of infinite banking. I know a number of people are talking about that, but they make it so complex. And his presentation was nice and succinct and very informative. So this has been an overall great experience. I definitely will recommend you to others.
Awesome, right? So once again, take action on the information that I provided you guys with tonight, because it could be your new form of doing business, right? Remember, we had spoke about a business trust where you don't want to be the owner of your LLC. So you want to be doing business the right way versus the wrong way. So it's time to get restructured. You want to treat this like a big business, not like some small little mom and pop shop, because that's not what this is. You want to treat your organization like you IBM, like you Facebook and Amazon, right? And it could also be your new way of saving money on taxes, right? So that that money can be allocated somewhere else, specifically real estate, because your girl love real estate, right? And so that is what you want to do in order for you to build wealth efficiently and effectively. So with that being said, what I'm going to do is tell you guys, let's work together, right? Because I have a program that actually teaches you this stuff step by step, right? And so here is the three options that you have. You have one option where you can do it yourself, the second option where you can do it, we can do it with you, and then the third option where we could do it for you. So the first option is do it yourself, where you will learn all of this in our course. So we have a course where we teach you step by step. And so what we do is inside of the course, and I'll show you the course in just a moment. Inside of the course, you get all of the training modules, and you get the templates for the three trusts that I mentioned. You get the business trust template, you get the family trust template, and you also get the tax exempt trust template, which I'll show you in just a minute, okay? And so what how the course is designed is you're going to be able to watch the module, and then you'll download the template and you'll start customizing your trust. So I break down every single paragraph of the trust so that you can understand the contents of the trust. Trust and believe that you're not going to be able to operate a trust without knowing what's inside of it. So you want to be properly trained so that you can have that confidence that you need to know that you can operate out here in society as a trustee, okay? So it's super important. Now, after we have provided you with the training, one thing that you need to know is that you have lifetime access to the course. So we're not one of those other companies to where we cut you off after 6 months or a year, okay? You have lifetime access. So in 2 years or 3 years, if you need to create another trust, you come right back to your portal to create it, okay? The next thing is that we give you all the resources that you need. So if you need to file taxes for your trust, we give you the resources. If you need to transfer your house into the trust, we give you the resources. If you need to open up a bank account for the trust, we give you all of the resources that you need, right? Just imagine if you had to figure out all of this stuff from scratch, right? The next thing is we give you ebooks, right? Why? Because we don't want you to only learn from us and our educators, right? So I'm not the only educator in the program. So it's me and other educators in the program, and we don't want you to only learn from us. We also want you to learn from other experts, and that's why we provide you with electronic ebooks from other trustees, and you can learn from them as well. And then lastly is that we have a community. So our community consists of over 2,200 trustees, and you have access to these like-minded individuals, right? These individuals have been operating within trustee for the last 5 years. And so you have direct access to them, to where their houses, their cars, boats, all kind of stuff, all of their assets, right, are in trust, right? And so these are like-minded individuals that are in the same city, the same state, the same town as you, okay? And you get to communicate with them in our private Facebook community, as well as our Telegram chat, where we're chatting back and forth. You're putting your answers in there, you're getting support. So with that being said, the course is only $997. The second option is done with you, where we do it together on Zoom. So do you see how we're on Zoom right now together? We do it as a group. It is 5 days long, okay? And it's 3 hours per day. It's 1 week long. And so the next one is going to be in March. And what happens is on Monday we focus on one trust. That trust is the business trust. Now that trust is over 50 something pages, and so I break down every single paragraph so that you can understand what's inside of the trust. So I do it live, and then you have a bunch of questions and I answer all of your questions live. I do not get off of Zoom until every single question is answered, okay? And so that's Monday. Tuesday, we do it for the family trust. So once again, I break down every single paragraph of that template, which is different from the business trust and the tax exempt, obviously. And so then after that, I answer all of your questions. Wednesday, we do it for the tax exempt nonprofit trust. And then I show you how to get your EINs with the IRS. And then I show you how to become ordained ministers if you want to operate it like a ministry. So with that being said, you have to understand that you just being in that environment with like-minded individuals, they are asking really good questions during those Q&A sessions of things you didn't even know you wanted to know. And then you start to learn more just by being in that environment. It's super powerful. On Thursday, we focus on OPM, other people's money, right? That's where I teach you how to open up a bank account for the trust. I give you the list of top banks where you can get your trust fund accounts, and then I show you how to have a board meeting. I show you about banking operations and procedures so that you can operate it the right way. Documentation is everything. Having a board meeting is everything. Having promissory notes when you're moving money in and out of your trust is everything, okay? So you learn all of that, and then our educator comes in and he teaches you about business credit and funding so that you can get the funds you need for the trust. Please don't think that we're going to teach you that you have to use the money from your job. No, you need to be able to accumulate funds and directly from the bank. So we have strong banking relationships to where you can get funds so that you're able to use those funds for your trust so that your trust can acquire assets, okay? So we show you that blueprint live on the workshop, okay? And then on Friday, we focus on assets. So we're gonna show you how to protect those assets. The first thing that we do is we take an inventory of our assets so that we know what assets are gonna go inside the trust and what assets cannot. Not all of your assets can go inside of the trust, but you have to learn which assets don't qualify, okay? And then from there, what happens is I show you how to transfer your house, I show you how to transfer your car, and I show you how to transfer your businesses into the trust live. And then our educator who comes in, he is a CPA, and he comes in and he teaches you about all of the tax forms that you need for the trust, and he answers all of your tax questions, right? And then we dive into Q&A, right? And so that's the workshop. The workshop is where you get hands-on assistance, where you get your questions answered right away, where you get that sense of security to know that you have set up your trust the right way, right? The workshop is only $2,500, and we do the workshops every 4 weeks, okay? So our next workshop is coming up, very soon, I think in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And then the last one is done for you. So done for you is where you have multiple businesses, multiple assets, or maybe you're not tech savvy, and you don't want to be able to do this whole process by yourself. And so what you want is you want to leverage me and my team so that we are able to do it for you. So me and my team, we will go ahead and set up all 3 of your trusts. We will go ahead and apply for all of your EINs with the IRS, and we'll transfer all of your assets. So the house, the car, the boat, whatever it is that you have, the insurance policies, right? So you get individualized support, right? You get one-on-one calls with me where I'll be able to guide you through your structure, so that we can get it solidified, and then we can customize all of your trust indentures. So it's super powerful. And so with the done for you, it's totally hands off. You don't have to do anything, right? We will ship your trust documents straight to your door, and it's only $7,500, right? So with that being said, all you have to do is just go to our website, and on our website, wealthytrustee.com, you'll be able to find all of the additional information, and you can go ahead and enroll in with whichever program that you want. So what I want to do is I want to show you quickly what the actual, excuse me. I want to show you what the trust looks like. So this is an example of one of our trust templates. And you see how there's a lot of stuff that's in red. This is how we've structured our trust templates so that you're just going to customize everything that you see in red, okay? And once again, like I said, I break down every single paragraph, okay? There's no way for you to really understand the contents without a trustee actually training you and teaching you and holding your hand through this whole process, okay? Now, this is the actual course, okay? So with the course, right, this is what you get access to, lifetime access. So it doesn't matter which program that you sign up for, you still get the course, you still get private community, you still get the Telegram chat and everything, okay? And one thing I didn't mention about the workshop is that if you sign up for the workshop or done for you, you get lifetime access to the workshop. So we do the workshops every 4 weeks. The next one is March 16th through I think the 19th or the 20th. So with that being said, you can attend in March, April, May, June, July, whenever you want. Lifetime access. So, right, to attend live, and our workshops are recorded. So if you're not able to attend the whole entire 3 hours, just know that it is recorded and you'll be able to watch the replay for whatever you missed. Okay. So with that being said, this is our course, and in the course you learn what a trust entity is. So we teach you what is a trust, the different parties involved in the trust, like the grantors, trustees, beneficiaries, successors, protectors. Then we teach you how to set up the ministry trust. We teach you how to set up the family trust, the business trust, and then we teach you about tax exemption, right? So one of your trusts is tax exempt. So we teach you how to operate as a tax exempt structure. And then also the for-profit entities, we teach you about distributable net income, and how to avoid tax evasion. That's not what we're doing, right? You want to be able to leverage these powerful entities and do it the right way. And so our CPA teaches you how to do it the right way. So with that being said, then we have asset protections. So with asset protections, as I mentioned, we take an inventory and then we learn how to open up those bank accounts, brokerage accounts. Then we learn how to transfer our house deed, card titles, insurance policies, businesses, and how to have board meetings. So one of the most important things is how to have a board meeting, right? And so a lot of us were running LLCs and corporations, and we never had a meeting for an organization. So we teach you how to do things the right way. And then the next one is wealth creation, where we teach you how to build business credit, how to invest in the stock market, and how to do the infinite banking with the life insurance policies. We teach you about the legacy crest and then the resources and ebooks, right? So for those of you guys that are on the call today, you guys can enjoy 20% off in the next 24 hours if you use the discount code TRUST20. So that is my gift to you this evening for staying for almost 2 hours. So I want to open up the floor for Q&A. Do you guys have any questions? I did see a few questions in the chat, but do you guys have any questions based off of anything that I went over today? I know that it was a lot. I know that I talk fast. I'll put the replay link inside of the chat, but do you guys have any questions?
I do.
Go ahead.
I was wondering, how we have when you have a successor trustee, since I have children, right? And so when I pick a successor trustee, can we compel the transfer of power to the trustee to the children when they become of age?
So right now you can only nominate someone who is 18 years or older, and then that person will have to nominate the children when they become age if you want them to have power over the trust.
Okay, so but we can't write it in a trust where the trustee have to name one of our children the new trustee. The trustee protector would have to do that at his own will or her own will.
No, the protector doesn't choose the successor. So the trustee is the one who chooses their successor. And if they didn't choose a successor, then other board of trustee members will choose their successor.
Oh, so whoever you choose as the trust protector is the trust protector after, let's say I go to the, I pass on, and that's just it. It can't pass down to the beneficiary.
Not the protector. No, the trustee. So those are not the same thing, okay? A trustee and a protector are two different positions in the trust.
Oh, okay.
So if you have a beneficiary who is at least 18 years or older, you can name them as a successor now. If you don't, then you're going to have to wait, okay? Because a minor cannot be listed as a successor because they have to be able to take over as early as tomorrow. And we know that an 8-year-old can't take over a trust tomorrow.
Right, right. Of course. I have another question, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Um, okay, so I have a patent, right? How does a trust protect a patent, an invention?
Yeah.
Like,
So the patent is registered, so you can place the patent into the trust.
all right, so if it's not registered, it doesn't count as like a poor man's copyright or evidence of the
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, you can if it's not registered.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. All right,
Another
that's all I
question.
have. Thank you.
You're welcome, Rome. All right. And then next we have is it Rams?
Ramses,
Ramses.
how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
If you wanted to put a car into a trust, it does it have to be at a certain year or value? And how do you put the value on the car as it just hold it for a long period of time?
That's a really great question. So, if you want to retitle that car into the trust name, you want to do that as a gift. And so you would put like a $1 value so that you don't have to pay taxes on it. Because if you put a value like that, that doesn't so it doesn't distinguish what the actual value of the vehicle is, right? But when you are transferring the title on that bill of sale, you don't want to put $30,000 because then you have to pay taxes on $30,000. So you
All
want
right.
to be able to gift it over. And so generally, the DMV will allow us to put $1 as that amount, and then we'll just pay transfer fees off of that $1. But the disclaimer is that you do have to have the title to the vehicle in order to place that vehicle into the trust. But as far as like you said, like the age of the vehicle, that doesn't matter either.
What if the title has a lien on it?
Right. So if it has a lien on it, that means that you don't have the title. And so what you would have to do is you would have to wait until the vehicle is paid off, or you would have to refinance it.
Or you could refinance it through the trust,
Correct.
and if the trust doesn't have capital
Mm-hmm.
built into it, yeah.
Yeah, so you can provide bank statements. So typically, you do have to be strategic. So you want to be able to make deposits into the trust account, and then provide 3 months of bank statements so that the trust can qualify.
One more question. If I wanted to put my primary home into the trust, um, should I refi it to take out the equity? Because some banks don't like to allow you to refi a home if it's in a trust.
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah. So, best practice is if you're going to refinance or if you're going to take a home equity line of credit, then you want to be able to do that before you place the property into a trust. Now, remember, I said that the trust can qualify. It's just that, the pool of lenders is very limited. So some lenders don't want to lend to a trust because they know that they won't be able to recover those funds. So if the trust defaults, they can't foreclose on the trust, and that's why they would choose not to lend to a trust, right? But there are lenders that do lend on trust, but it's very few. So you want to be able to secure those loans and those lines of credit before you transfer the property.
Would that be under irrevocable trust or revocable trust? Can you
So
do it on either
so it
one?
so it depends on if you want the asset to be protected or not protected. So with revocable, the asset is not protected. With irrevocable, the asset is fully protected.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, next we have BB.
Hello, Christina. I'm Bernard.
Hi, Bernard. How are you?
Man, fine. I just want to first of all say thank you so much for the information.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Definitely life
I'm just
changing.
on mission.
Man, we definitely appreciate you. So my first question, I do have two. I just
Okay.
want clarity on, you said the business trust holds or controls the LLC. So is the holding trust and the business trust, is that the same or is that two separate trusts?
So it is the same. So it's just how you operate it.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. And then my last question was, so now you said in regards to revocable versus irrevocable, the irrevocable one is the one that you want to choose. And so what if one of your beneficiaries turn into a damn demon and you can't do anything and they're written into the trust? You just stuck with a demon, you can't get them out.
No. So remember I said that we have spendthrift provisions and we
Right.
have requirements. So we have many different requirements for the beneficiaries. So one is that the beneficiaries can be removed. So let them play with you and they will be cut out of the trust organization, okay? So like one of our requirements is that they have to be law-abiding citizens, right? So if they out here breaking laws, guess what? They out of the trust organization, because the last thing you're going to do is cause this organization to be an embarrassment, right? Because we're doing this for our last name and we are leaving a legacy and we are not going to let anyone tarnish the name of our organization. Okay, so if they're out here breaking the law, they got to go, right? If they are like if their conduct, right, if they have misconduct, misbehavior, if they're going against the trust organization, if they're going against you as a trustee, if they are like just causing a disruption, if they decide, oh, I want to go sue the trust. Well, if you decide to sue the trust, guess what? You're going to be terminated. So you can remove the beneficiaries, and you just have to have grounds and proof for that. So if you said demon, there's some kind of activity that's happening that is not in alignment with the purpose and intent of why we created this organization. You gotta go.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. One quick last question just popped into my head. So I actually have a faith-based organization that I've had for about 7 years, and I just applied. Well, I had one of my members apply for our EIN, and I'm trying to turn it into a 508c1a, and then the member filled out the information, but he put it in his name, and I'm just wondering if that's going to be a conflict if I need to go to the bank and set up the account. I need to. Is there any way where I can get him to relinquish his name and get my information on the I guess with the IRS, if that
Mm,
makes sense?
yeah. So there's a 8822B. You just fill that out and you're good to go. So you're just gonna change the responsible party.
Awesome. Thank you so much. God bless you.
God bless you too. I need all the blessings that I can get. Okay, I told y'all I'm on mission, so just bring it on over here. All right, next we have Booker. Hi, Booker.
Hey, how you doing?
Great.
I
How are you?
appreciate the information.
Yay. You're welcome. It's my
All right,
pleasure.
so I have an LLC in real estate, um, and I want to relinquish it and put it into a trust. But also, I'm a licensed minister. I want to actually also have a nonprofit to put to so that my church can be taken care of as well. Um, and I have a house that I want to put inside and relinquish, but I do have a lien on it. So, um, do I have to take care of that first as well?
So that's a really good question. So what you do not, the property doesn't have to be paid off, okay? So I don't want you to think like the actual vehicle, right? So the property doesn't have to be paid off. Your mortgage is going to remain intact and it's going to remain on your credit. And if you're okay with that, then all you have to do is deed over the property from your personal name into the trust, and everything's going to remain intact.
Okay, I like that. I like that. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about actually putting my church name inside of the trust. And I would like to take what I built from my LLC, my current new career, which is tax-free retirement, which what you're already talking about with insurance.
Mhm.
And I know you said about the business trust is being set up as a holding company. Could you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so the business trust is a business trust, and what I'm saying is that you're going to operate it as you would operate a holding company.
Okay,
So it's designed to operate other legal entities like corporations and LLCs. With a holding company, you're non-operational, which means that you don't have any product, services, or employees. So it's just going to hold the asset. The asset is the LLC, the asset is the corporation. So that's what it's designed to do, to hold that asset and also to hold the funds for that asset just in case that asset is sued.
gotcha. So what's the difference between an active and a holding? The active is the trust itself is the business.
Correct. The act,
Okay,
right. So if it's a restaurant and you want, instead of getting an LLC, you get it as a business trust, right? And then that restaurant is operating like a traditional company.
gotcha, gotcha.
So it's all in the way that you operate it.
Okay, so a trust can be is something on the lines of a C corp. It's an entity, an actual
Yeah,
entity.
that's correct.
Okay, okay, okay. Got you, got you, got you. All right, I'm understanding now. All right,
I know, I see that.
appreciate you.
You're so welcome, Booker. Thank you for being here tonight.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna be at church, but my
I
friend is running
know.
late.
Yeah, it's Lynn. I know my friend is having a service right now. All right, let me see if there's any other questions in the chat. If not, I did put the replay link inside of the chat. And
Have more.
Ramis, did I say your name right?
Ramses.
Ramses. It's gonna take me a little bit, but I'll get it, I promise.
Yeah, just think of Moses, Ramses.
You said
And
think of what?
Moses and Ramses, those two brothers in the biblical name.
Okay.
What I wanted to ask you is, if I started an LLC, you saying that I could just transfer it over to a trust
The ownership, yes.
ownership, but the LLC still has to do its own accounting?
The LLC is still going to be operational and everything's going to remain intact with the LLC. So however you operating it, you're going to continue to operate it. It's just that the owner has changed.
I got the EIN from the IRS, but I was looking at the paperwork. It just says when I applied, I wasn't aware in Form 1-2, revocable or non-revocable. So that paperwork is showing that I have it as a revocable. Could I call IRS and just switch it over to a revocable trust, or I have to get a different tax ID number?
Yeah, it depends on them. Just call them and ask them.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
As far as the IUL, do you provide that service,
Yeah, we
or
do.
are
We have
you
it. Yes.
affiliated?
No, we do.
is it doable or feasible if you are of age of in the 60s?
Yeah, of course.
Does it work, or should I just do
So
it
usually they'll
for
max you
my
out at
children?
like 80 years old.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 60 is
You
fine.
know, okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. All
One
right.
question, Faith, please.
Yes, Miss Faye.
Yes. Do we get the IUL? Is it included in the workshop or no?
Yeah, so we don't charge you in order to set up an IUL for you. So we do provide you with training, so it is included.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. We have Nadia.
Yes, I had to skip past the portion when you were talking about like the insurance policies. So I have two questions. So I have a long-term insurance policy for my son that adds cash value. Would that be able to go in a trust, or you're saying that I just have to create an IUL?
Oh no, that could go inside of the trust. So if you have any existing policies, those policies can be directly owned by your trust. Your
Okay.
trust could also be the beneficiary. So you would just have to, after you set up your trust, you contact your life insurance carrier to let them know that you want to change the ownership information, the payer information, and the beneficiary information. So we recommend that the trust be the owner, payer, and the beneficiary.
Owner, payer, and the beneficiary. Okay, thank you. And then also, if I am paying off my home with land contracting and I have like the partial deed, am I still able to put that in a trust?
So all people who is on the deed,
Mm-hmm.
they have to sign.
Okay,
So
the
like
seller.
so for example, if you own 50% of the property and you want your 50% into the trust, you can do that, but whoever owns the other 50% has to sign over that there's a new deed created where it's 50% them and 50% the trust. So you're going to have permission of all parties involved with that deed.
Great, great. Okay, well, I thank you for all the information and for what you're doing, and I'm going to look into your program as
All
well.
right. Thank
All
you. I'm
right.
so glad. Thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate you being here, Sunshine.
You're welcome. Thank
All
you.
right. Awesome. All right. Any other final questions? So Raymond said, great job. Thank you, Raymond. I appreciate you so much.
Yes, I have another question if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Is it ever like a good idea to have a corporate trustee? Let's say if a business is like grows super, you know, fast, is it ever a good idea to have a corporate trustee?
It depends on like the type of corporation that you are listing as the trustee because these corporations, they have a high turnover rate, and so it's not going to be advantageous to the trust for the trustee to be turning over like every year or two. So it depends, and I would just tell you it depends on like the type of company that you choose to serve as the trustee.
Okay, do you do that? Do your company do this?
No.
Okay. And one more thing. So this has to do with the life insurance. So every month, are we requesting loans every month to pay the bills from someone? Is that what's happening?
So it's like on demand whenever you need it. So if you want to do it monthly, you can.
Okay, but it's like an ongoing like loan thing. Like you requesting okay, just to pay the bills. So whatever's going to pay the bills for the month or 2 months, you're requesting it. Uh, and that's just an ongoing process.
Yeah, so it happens however often that you want it to happen. So you're going to structure it and design it that way.
Okay, is there like ever any issues or someone like repeatedly just they don't mind as long as the I guess the liquid assets are there available, so they don't mind giving you loans no matter if it's like 1,000 loans. That's like what you're saying?
Yeah, so they're not going to give you any loans if you don't have like the available cash value to cover it. So you have to have the available cash value. So if your cash value is 5,000, they're not going to give you a loan for 10,000.
Right. Okay. So as long as the cash is there, you
Yeah,
can
and
basically.
then they'll let you know too. So they'll let you know if, if you don't have like enough cash value to cover it, or if your policy is at risk of lapsing. So they'll let you know all of those things.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you
Mhm.
so much. I appreciate you very much for answering my question.
You're welcome. Aramis?
Ramses,
Ramses. Okay, Ramses. I think I
being
might
being that the bank is dealing in trust and they're dealing with securities, when you open up the trust and you put your mortgage and your deed transferred over to the trust, are you able to collect your securities, the percentage that you're entitled to through the trust?
I'm not familiar with that process. I know a lot of people that go through the steps that they need to take. So, um, I'm not sure if they had any success with that.
So are you're not able to allocate, let the bank know that you are now transferring? Well, they'll know that the title is transferred, but they're not able to make made aware that all payments will be coming instead of from you, coming from the trust.
You can let them know that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. It said, where would the replay be? So we just put the link to the replay. The replay is on our YouTube channel. So we are streaming live. So the replay link is inside of the chat. You can also go to our YouTube channel, which is 7 Ways to Wealth, and you can watch a lot of great content that we have there. So please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We would really appreciate that. So a lot of people said that they need to watch the replay. So the replay is inside of the chat. So without further ado, we're going to adjourn our webinar tonight. Thank you so much for being here. I just hope that you guys take action on the information that I provided you guys with tonight, because it's not about the knowledge that you acquire, it's about you applying the actual knowledge, right? So it's good that you know about the trust, but now you actually have to go set it up. You actually have to go transfer your assets. You have to actually build a legacy now while you're living, okay? And remember, I told you guys are the generational curse breakers. So it's up to you to be able to do it for your family, for you to be able to do it for your last name, for you to be able to change the trajectory of your life and your kid's life and your kid's life. Okay. It's going to take that one brave person in everyone's household and family, which is you. That's why you're on the call right now. So go ahead and just take that leap of faith and just know that you're going to be doing the best thing for you and your family. So I hope to see you guys in the next upcoming webinar and our workshop, and then also to welcome you guys into the community. So once again, you guys can enjoy 20% off in the next 24 hours using the discount code TRUST20. Our website is wealthytrusty.com. And if you guys want to secure your discount, but you don't want to pay for the whole thing right now, then you can go ahead and put a deposit down. The deposit is only $200, and that'll roll you right into a payment plan. So we do have payment plan options available. You can customize it, or you can go with our traditional plans, whatever works for you. So thank you for being here and staying the whole 2 hours. I adore you guys so much, and I look forward to welcoming you guys into the community. Bye, everybody. Have a wonderful evening and a wonderful week. Miss Faith, you have a question? I see your hand up.
Yes, I just enrolled in the program, but it did charge me I think 400 and something, not 200. I did use the discount code as well.
You
And I
did.
did it for the 2,500, the one, yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna have Ivy contact you now. So my assistant Ivy, she's on the call, so she just heard you, so she's gonna contact you now, okay?
Alrighty, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. God bless you.
All right.
Welcome into the program and into the community, Miss Faith.
Thank you.
You're welcome.